Welcome, everyone. My name is Perry Rahman Porras. I'm the Director of Partnerships and Business Development here at CareAcademy. Today, we have our partners, AlayaCare, with us to present a webinar on how to create an unforgettable onboarding experience. So I will ask Becky to forward to the next slide, please. All right, so before we dive into the webinar, just a couple of housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded. We will share the recording of the webinar after the event. You can look out for an email from us for this information. And towards the end of the webinar, probably about 10 to 15 minutes before we end, we will dive into a Q&A, and you can actually put any questions that you have into the Q&A button, which you should see below your Zoom screen where it says Q&A. So feel free to put any questions there and we will address them towards the end of the webinar. All right, I would love to introduce my colleague, Bianca, who is the Manager of Customer Onboarding at CareAcademy. Bianca, do you mind just introducing yourself, also giving us a quick overview of CareAcademy, please?
Of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Bianca Shimada. As Perry mentioned, I'm the Manager of Customer Onboarding, and I've been here with CareAcademy for 5 years. So just a little bit of background. I started here at CareAcademy as a customer support representative. Then I found my true passion in onboarding customers and fostering relationships and successful agency launches. I'm always excited about reinventing the wheel of our onboarding process to successfully transition and provide exceptional experiences to our customers. So I'm very excited to talk about this topic today. Next slide, Becky. All right, so just to start off, let me give a brief overview of what CareAcademy is. So CareAcademy is a caregiver training platform that is specifically designed for the e-learning space. We cater to the needs of home care, home health, and assisted living facilities. So on the left side of the screen, we have our caregiver dashboard, which is mobile friendly. This is where learners will log in to complete their CareAcademy training. Our training programs have clinical and non-clinical education to ensure a comprehensive learning experience. One of the fantastic features that we have is our automated reminders that get sent by email and text to enhance the learner's engagement, all the while ensuring that organizations stay on top of compliance or agency requirements. On the right-hand side, you can also observe the administrator's perspective. The view that you're seeing right now on the right side is the agency administrator's view upon logging into CareAcademy. An admin does have various features such as viewing learner completions, progress details. They can set up a curriculum, add additional training, and a lot more. Next slide, please. All right, so CareAcademy has successfully trained more than 500,000 professionals in the field. Our platform prioritizes mobile accessibility and complies with the regulatory requirements for all 50 states in the US, as well as Canada. Our top-notch training programs aim to assist organizations in recruiting, onboarding, and upskilling staff, and we help agencies retain their existing learners and care staff as well. We also provide the means for measuring the effectiveness of the training and its practical application when care staff interacts with clients in the field. So let me go ahead and hand this off to my co-panelist, Jeff Howell.
All right, thanks, Bianca. So I've been at AlayaCare for about 6 years in various sales and marketing roles. What probably people see me doing most is the Home Health 360 podcast, where I have the pleasure of speaking with leaders in home care from across the globe. I'll give you a quick fun fact. If you Google most electrifying man in healthcare, I spend a lot of money every month to make sure that I am ranked #1 for that. So feel free to do that search and then give me a click so I can maintain my #1 position. But if anyone also wants to reach out to me afterwards, my email is just jeff.howell@AlayaCare.com, and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well. So a little bit about AlayaCare. What I've really come to discover is the biggest unknown, unspoken problem in home health is that people think that they got scheduling, and yet what happens is that there are caregivers that still don't get the hours that they need, even though 1 out of every 3 home care referrals gets rejected. So what sits in the middle is the scheduling and the coordination. And when we go in and do a value creation exercise with our prospects, what we find is that probably about 2/3 of the value that we actually can create is in these little cracks that are having to do with lining up the care team and the new clients and the new caregivers, especially, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And I'm really proud of what we've been doing on being able to automate our workflows for our clients using AI and declaring a war on repetitive tasks.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Thank you, Bianca. So we're going to dive right into questions. And actually, my first question is for Jeff. So we're dedicating time here today to talk about the onboarding experience. I think it would be great to level set on why does this matter, Jeff? Why should onboarding be something that home care and home health agencies even think about? And then also, how would you rank like a good onboarding experience versus a poor onboarding experience?
So 1 out of every 3 caregivers that are hired quit before they even provide 1 hour of care. And depending on what number you believe in the industry, I've seen a range of about $2,600 to recruit a caregiver up to $4,000. So it is this massive, retaining caregivers is more important than the recruiting part, because if you have a chance to retain them, it means that you have some kind of relationship with them to start with. So I don't have any data on what is a good onboarding experience, what's a bad onboarding experience, but it's obvious that this is the first impression that you have with a company, and the better onboarding experience that you have, the better chance you have of keeping these caregivers. And in a normal job, you see a spike of turnover at the anniversary marks. So people say, I'm going to stick out this job for a year. That's what's normal. If they make it 1 year, then they'll say, I'll stick it out another year. In home care, it's 90 days. So somewhere between 50 and 60% of your caregivers will tend to turn over by that 90-day window. If they can make it through those first 90 days, which is heavily dependent on what kind of a start you get off to, then there's a very good chance that you'll actually end up keeping them for a longer period of time thereafter.
Thanks, Jeff. And I think the 90-day window is a really important window. I know, Bianca, in your day-to-day, you and your team see this as well. Can you talk a little bit about what are the common challenges you see agencies facing during this 90-day onboarding process?
Absolutely. So when it comes to organizations in the onboarding process, a lot can experience a lot of challenges, and these can vary depending on a lot of factors. And this comes from what I've experienced during the time when I was still onboarding customers. The very first thing that I notice is clear communication is the first and crucial challenge for organizations. Lack of communication or unclear expectations can lead to misunderstandings, delays, and frustration. So it's very essential for administrators to outline objectives, timelines, roles, and set everyone up for success. So this is why we communicate with our customers through, or whatever it takes for us to set up clear expectations and guidelines to make sure that they're ready to launch CareAcademy. Another roadblock is listening. So as humans, we multitask like crazy. I'm guilty of it too. So one of my team members, I remember her saying, multitasking is a necessary evil. So we have a lot of noise and 100 things on our to-do list every day, but you should be able to recognize in a conversation when someone has a new idea or a new perspective So you should be present in that moment when someone like a staff member or a client, a caregiver, or maybe your designated onboarding specialist, if they have a certain recommendation, suggestion, feedback, or experience to share, because you'll never know what you will learn from others that can sprout this new idea to roll out this new platform to your agency. So don't forget, or don't be afraid to include your own team. Another challenge would be resistance to change. So this can be tough for anyone. I often find myself in this boat whenever I plan for something, but another thing comes up. So onboarding often comes with a change in process, systems or tools, whatever it is. And some organizations may resist these changes due to the fear of the unknown or because they need to learn new skills. So for example, one of your staff members is doubting working with you because they may not be technologically savvy, and you're implementing a program that requires them to use technology. So that's where the first two challenges come in. You should be able to listen and communicate to your staff members so you can assure them that this platform may be some already like any other platform or technology that they're already using in their daily lives. So supporting and being available for your staff during the transition is crucial. And don't forget to also rely on external sources such as a customer support team of the new platform that you're going to use.
That's great advice, Bianca. Thank you. I think you said something great in there about how difficult it is for care staff to adopt this new technology that they've never seen before. Jeff, you and I were talking earlier about rewarding behaviors for, care staff when they complete something massive like adopting a new learning system. What are some of the other key steps or mile markers you think that agencies should set up for onboarding new staff?
All right, I got 5.
Okay, great.
Okay. The first one's a little counterintuitive. I ask agencies, what is your removal of bad hire strategy, right? And so most of the industry is so thirsty to get new caregivers to come in that they set the bar low and they pretty much will accept anybody. The problem is there are bad hires for every job out there. And these bad hires, they document poorly. They don't show up on time. When they do show up, they're not clocking in and clocking out. They provide bad service. And then at the end of it, they leave poorly. They ghost you. And for all of this effort, you've paid your $2,600 to $4,000 to get this person on board. And then the client thanks you with a poor review online. So when I talk to agencies and they say, well, we don't even have a bad hire strategy, but when you look at Indeed.com as an example is the #1 source of caregivers, but it's also the #1 source of bad caregivers, right? So you might want to take a look at mycnajobs.com or, I ask agencies, what is your #1 source of high quality caregivers? And if maybe you can repatriate money from putting it into Indeed ads to improving your referral bonus, because referrals from existing caregivers will yield a much higher degree of reliable caregivers. The second thing is I ask agencies, what's your time to hire? And I've seen a range of hours to 3 weeks. And so there's so many websites that I see where there's so much friction and pain associated with applying because they just haven't updated their WordPress websites. And it says, hey, download this PDF. Then you have to print up the PDF. Then you have to fill it out by pen. Then you have to scan it. Then you have to email it back to perry@abchomecare.com. And there's no instructions on what happens next. So, and if you think about it, there are studies that show that up to 80% of caregivers don't even have a credit card. And if that's the case, you actually should re-engineer your process of, hey, if we need more applicants, then we should have a form on our website that's built for mobile. And it could be as little as contact information. Do you have a criminal record? Do you have the credentials to work in the state? And that's it. Because you don't need a form that's so prohibitive that you can ask those questions in the first interview. And then the second part of that is that that form should have automations built in. So I'll give you an example. If you're using a WordPress website, you could use JotForm as your form, and then that data should flow into your system of record. If it doesn't, it could still flow into another free system of record like a HubSpot or an Airtable. And then there should be triggers that are associated with that, so that the caregiver gets an immediate text message to confirm that their application has been received. Or there should be, if you use Calendly or Chili Piper, you can have logic set up so that if Perry applies for a job and speaks Spanish or has a Hoyer-Lift certification, or there's something that triggers, hey, we need this person to go into an interview right away, then what can pop up is someone's calendar. So I love Chili Piper for this. This is a really good example of a technology that sits in behind a form. And then when the certain logic is triggered, then a particular person's calendar pops up, and it might be even a round robin of your entire team. And in my experience, when you have that, 80% of the time, the person submitting the form ends up just scheduling something right away. So it's hands-free and it just arrives in your calendar. The third thing I would say is, I just call it this like financial blueprint meeting. So if you look at it from our data, exiting caregivers say, number one, what Bianca said about lack of communication. So they applied for a job, then everything went silent and they didn't feel the love and they decided to think about going elsewhere. And the second thing is they didn't feel the money, right? So the caregivers, the number one place that they go to if they leave an agency is they go to retail, right? And they have to make their money. So going back to the idea that if you think that maybe up to 80% of caregivers don't have a credit card, agencies that sit down and say, hey, look, we want to get you paid and we want to be very specific and direct about everything. We're not going to tell you you're going to pay it at the end of the week. We're going to talk to you about, what do your bills look like? And you're going to get paid $600 at the end of this week, right? So it's much more clear communication. And I would recommend a company like TapCheck or any of the other daily pay providers where you actually can start getting caregivers paid every single day for the work that they put in. And then the fourth thing I would recommend is going back to this idea that the number one reason why they leave is they feel like they weren't attached to the company and there was no communication plan. I would recommend everyone open up a Word document, save it as 90-day communication strategy, and then start filling it in. And you can go to the nth degree of automation or to the nth degree of personalization. So if you're a smaller agency, you could have it so that the CEO of the company picks up the phone and continually checks in with the caregivers to see how they're doing. And at a larger company, you could use a system like preintent.com, which is basically an automated SMS sequence that you can set up so that the caregivers can get cadences and text messages that are checking in surveys from whoever you designate, like the CEO. And what we found is that the reasons why caregivers stay, number one is it's a calling, right? But that's out of your control. Number two is the serving the client and what the client thinks. Number three is serving your supervisor, and number four is serving the owner of the company, right? And so it's pretty straightforward, is that serving the clients. So now as an agency, you should have a communication cadence to be able to proactively collect that feedback from those happy clients and share it with the caregiver. That should be priority one. Priority two is you should incentivize the supervisor and score them on their providing of affirmative feedback. And number three is that the CEO should be embedded into this culture of they have to provide encouragement to the caregivers as well. And then my fifth one is what you had mentioned already, Perry, is that we've seen some really positive ROI case studies with a partner of ours called Caribou that provides rewards for caregivers to incentivize them to do the right thing, like refer a caregiver and get 500 points, clock in and out on time, get 5 points. Do your documentation correct, get 10 points. And these are things that can be baked right into all parts of the process. So getting your CareAcademy work done could have additional points in addition to the badges that you have within your system, right? So it's like you can just reward and incentivize all of the right behavior all throughout.
That's awesome, Jeff. I really like the idea of mapping out the 90-day process for agencies to have clear communication lines, and then also the automation pieces wherever agencies can afford to do that. I think that is great. I think, Jeff, you and Bianca, you had both touched a little bit earlier on how training fits into this onboarding process. Bianca, can you talk a little bit more about how does training fit into the onboarding process? And then also, when should agencies assign training, and why does it matter that they do it in a timely manner?
Absolutely. Yeah. I really love what Jeff said about the automation and an established flow, since that really helps with the smooth onboarding experience. One of the best practices that we mentioned during onboarding is before an organization launched CareAcademy, they have to give their caregivers enough time to absorb the information and provide enough documentation and heads up that a new training platform is going to roll out, or whatever new platform is going to roll out, this is going to happen, and they're going to change something in their usual routine. So I recommend that training should be implemented as soon as possible. Training helps employees acquire new skills. There's no doubt about that. And by assigning training promptly, organizations make sure that they have the opportunity to develop the competencies that they need as early as possible. So this allows employees to start contributing to their roles with confidence and competence. And of course, in order for caregivers to welcome the training, it should be brought up in several instances, not just at the beginning of orientation. For example, caregiver training opportunities should be provided early during orientation and continue during performance reviews, during upskilling and rewarding. This definitely helps employees stay updated and adapt to any changes effectively. I've also found that for the customers that I've onboarded previously, that when they do this, they have that ability to adapt to any feedback or comment from their caregivers as to what is working or what is not working with the current training that they're doing right now. So some of our customers do in-person training, while others do a hybrid type of training. And several organizations make CareAcademy classes mandatory for any infractions or gaps, for example. And some of them provide caregivers training to help coach them to success based on customer needs and complaints. This also contributes to employee retention. So when employees see that their employer is dedicated to their development, they are more likely to stay with the organization and contribute to their knowledge and skills effectively. And it would show that you, as their employer, value their professional advancement and is willing to invest in them for their success.
Awesome. Thank you, Bianca. I love that guidance and how training fits into a successful onboarding journey. I think both you, Bianca, and Jeff, we've been talking a lot about technology platforms and how agencies can use them to make their lives easier or make the process for onboarding smoother for care staff. I think often we see the challenge that, a new care staff has to now learn how to use a whole, different training platform, where they have to use an EVD platform that's brand new. What are some of the common issues that you see when it comes to training a new caregiver on technology platforms? And then are there best practices that you can share? And I'll ask Jeff first, and then I'll move on to you, Bianca.
Three things. So we surveyed thousands of caregivers. The number one reason of the caregivers that weren't using our mobile app is they weren't aware that they had an app to use. So that's one. Second biggest issue, password resets. So we still get, everyone is informed to talk to their supervisor if they have any issues with our app. We get about 10 demo requests per day. And in the comments, it says, I forgot my password. So if you can have a great password reset workflow, or if you're using a mobile app that has biometric identification through fingerprint or facial recognition, it's like some of the basics that really is, what it's about. And then the third thing I would just say is that we've redesigned our app, and much of it was having to do with just the user interface to make it as graphical and simple to use as possible. And what we found is that we've had agencies that have 98% adoption within 2 days. All right. And so it's all just about the basics. And then when this is the one tool that they're really going into, because when they use a tool like yours, they'll go into a tool like ours, and then they'll find your stuff baked in there, right? And that's what it should be, is like they've got the system of record that they're using, and then all the other components that they need, it's all right there. And what I would say is that when you create I would say you probably should account for 60% of the caregivers. It'll be not a problem. You're going to work a little harder on 30%. And then there's going to be the unavoidable 10% where you just say, okay, it's time to schedule a time to get everyone in a room. And those numbers will probably just work out really for every agency. And if you account and expect for that 10%, just have the patience with it, that last 10% will be more work, but it just is what it is.
Thanks, Jeff. I really like the overarching theme that keep things simple, right? And really, you should, not everyone is going to understand the technology platform, or they might just need a little bit more coaching, which is fine. But to have some dedicated time to help those folks, I think is great. Bianca, same question to you. What are your thoughts?
Well, pretty much the same with Jeff, because of course with AlayaCare, you have an app. CareAcademy does not, specifically because it can be accessible through a browser. So it's definitely accessible to any mobile device, tablets, whatever you have available. And this really goes all back to what Jeff mentioned earlier, that it's really great to have that foundation and automation in your workflow, and not just in the onboarding phase. You have to constantly update it as you get feedback and comments from your customers or from anyone, so that you can progressively improve your system. And that is also why we have our customer support team that is so amazing, of course, that answers to caregiver outreach as well as administrator outreach, so we can assist them. Also, we have a dedicated onboarding team. So if we have any customers having trouble, or if they have a new administrator that needs to be trained again to the CareAcademy platform, or because they have not been trained to CareAcademy, we go ahead and give them a hands-on approach to make sure that they are able to utilize CareAcademy at its maximum.
Thanks, Bianca. I think, Jeff, you had also mentioned this about AlayaCare being the system of truth, and then all the other components that live within it to make the life of a caregiver as well as an agency admin easier, so that they can connect to the different parts. Can you talk about how does AlayaCare specifically, as a system of truth or record keeping, help the onboarding process for care staff?
We have the fortune of being born in 2014, and this is a little bit above my pay grade, but the standards around how softwares connect to each other became more friendly, let's say, in 2014. So AlayaCare has these more modern APIs, and so we connect to more than 300 different softwares seamlessly. And what that means is that in the example I provided earlier, where you have a WordPress website with a JotForm, and then that JotForm pushes the data into a HubSpot or an Airtable, that's all great. And you can use these tools that are free or close to free and create workflows for yourself that if you're very small, then great, you can get by with these like relatively free products. But AlayaCare also integrates with all of these products. And so I'll give you a great example is Perry applies to be a caregiver at ABC Home Care. And that data just flows right into AlayaCare, and it triggers a text message back to Perry saying, Bianca is going to reach out very soon. And then it also sends either a text message or puts a task within AlayaCare for Bianca. And we take action very quickly. Because if there's a decay in interest, if you've applied and we're taking a while to get back to you, and it's unclear when we will get back to you, you probably moved on to another agency or you're looking at jobs in retail. And so our ability to be at the center of your technology ecosystem means that you can use best in breed tools, because we're not going to be the best for anything. So you could use the best applicant tracking system, you can have the best forms, you can have the best SMS platform, and then, but there has to be a center of the universe there. And so that's how I think that we really help out. And just like our partnership with you guys, it's that, you use your AlayaCare app for everything, and you get all the goodness that comes with CareAcademy baked right in. So.
Thanks, Jeff. That was a great outline of how the ecosystem works for you guys today. Bianca, when you look at agencies that are considering selecting a training provider, what are the factors you think that agencies should consider when selecting their training and enablement platform?
There are definitely a lot of factors to consider. This is like when you're buying something from Walmart or anywhere, basically. So one of the several factors that I'm mentioning here would be do your research. The training provider should have the expertise relevant to your organization's needs. They should offer training programs that align with your organization's goals, objectives, and compliance requirements, especially. Don't be afraid to consider reading reviews online, testimonials, case studies to assess their effectiveness and reliability. You could also ask for references directly, as they will provide valuable insights to the training programs, quality of training, responsiveness, and overall customer satisfaction. Another thing that you should also consider is that if the training provider's methodologies, delivery formats, and resources would fit into your needs as an organization, because everyone has a different learning style. So definitely assess that as well. So assess the availability of training materials, tools, and support systems, like if they have a dedicated support team, or if they can provide you the training materials that you need when needed. And don't be afraid to ask your sales consultant or whoever is assisting you in making the decision. And of course, don't forget to take advantage of free trials. So test out the platform yourself, check it out, and make sure that it's the right fit for your organization.
That's great. Thank you, Bianca. As we move on to one of our last questions here, I'd like to bring back some of the topics and guidance that both Bianca and Jeff has given. So top of mind for me as I'm thinking about how to create a smooth onboarding process for my agency, I think to both of your points, having a transparent, communicative process with my care staff, establishing that 90-day plan and ensuring there are like mile markers, whether it's rewarding for HR tasks or onboarding tasks, and then automating some systems as well to ensure that when I'm recruiting new hires, that I'm getting back to them on time. I have a way that I'm communicating to them. So I love all of the guidance here. It's fantastic. I think throughout the conversation, there are elements that you can tell will help agencies to recruit and retain through a good, efficient onboarding process. My question to both of you, and Bianca, I'll ask you first, is how does a smooth onboarding process help with recruiting and retention?
Yeah. Well, Jeff and I have talked about a lot of good nuggets in this webinar. But for me, my top 3 takeaways would be: 1 is a positive first impression. So a well-structured onboarding process creates the impression of your organization. It shows that your organization is a well-oiled machine, values its employees, and you're committed to their success. So this positive experience can enhance your organization's reputation and attract top talents during the recruitment process. The second one would be a faster productivity and ramp up. So when there is effective onboarding, this allows new hires to get up to speed quickly. This is what Jeff was talking about, with them being in the middle to facilitate the hiring of the caregiver to ensure that, it goes so smoothly as possible. You wouldn't have, or you wouldn't want to have that lull of waiting. Oh, do I get hired now or later? What do I do now? So by providing them with the necessary resources, information, training, whatever they need, they can become productive and start contributing to their roles faster. So that reduces the time it takes for new hires to become fully functional and increase their job satisfaction as well. The last one would be employee or enhanced employer branding. What I mean about this is, when you have an effective onboarding process, it also contributes to your brand as an employer of choice. So when employees have a positive onboarding experience, they are more likely to share their experiences with others, including, online reviews or word of mouth. This can attract more clients and employees alike during the recruitment process and positively impact the company's reputation as an employer of choice.
Thanks, Bianca. Great advice. Jeff, same question to you.
So we live in a world of high choice, low tolerance, right? Or low patience. And so you can book an entire vacation, flights, hotel, car rental in the span of 5 minutes. And it should be very frictionless to be able to apply for a job. And that speaks volumes as to what the rest of your process would look like after someone goes to a job, right? And so if you can then become obsessed with doing things with less work and fewer clicks, that you can say, well, we've designed the perfect process for people to apply and get through to the stage that they get their first shift. Let's also apply that methodology to how we match caregivers to clients, and the same methodology to make sure that people can get all the hours that they want and they ramp up their utilization quickly. Because if you're not at 70% of what their desired utilization is after 2 weeks, they're probably going to be out the door and they won't have great things to say to others. So as Bianca says, like, people talk, and you want to make sure that your caregivers become your extended sales force.
That's awesome. Thank you, Jeff. So we are at the end of our questions for the panelists, but I know that Becky, if you don't mind coming on, Becky is going to moderate some of the audience questions and answers. So just as a reminder, if you have a question, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom to ask any questions. And then Becky will facilitate to either Bianca or Jeff to help answer your question.
Thanks, Perry. So we do have one question in here, and we had one earlier that I answered. So I'll just say that briefly. One of the questions was, what was the name of the company for incentives? And I heard Jeff say that was called Caribou. So I put the link in there in the Q&A if anyone's looking for that.
I believe their URL is caribou.health. It's not a .com.
Caribou.care is the one I found.
Caribou.care.
Right?
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
There it is. Perfect. Caribou.care. Thank you. And then another question that came in, this is also for you, Jeff. this is from Katie. She says, wouldn't it be great if we can track the good from the bad in AlayaCare and connect them to referral sources for hire so that we can see patterns?
So you can do that. We call them custom context form fields. So basically you can create new fields in AlayaCare for that exact reason, is that you could run, say, a Facebook campaign, or you could go to a trade show to recruit caregivers, and you can create a drop-down select menu so that all of the new recruits, you can tag them as to what the source was. And then you can come up with an arbitrary field just called, like caregiver score. And, it might be arbitrary, but it's a metric that you would make up, and you could grade them like A, B, or C or something like that.
Thank you. Another question that came in here is, what if you only have part-time to offer? This is a question from Debbie. I'm not sure who wants to take this.
I mean, I'll answer it from our perspective, is that that can be a field that you ask in an intake form for a caregiver. And because a lot of caregivers actually only want to work part-time. And as you go through the screening process, you can actually figure out what their preferred days are. And what we've found is weeknights and weekends are the least popular times, but this is part of the matchmaking that our employee finder does. And so think of it as your desired time or time slots is almost like a skill that you're using as a filter when you're trying to match up caregivers to clients. And one of the big reasons why caregivers turn over as well is it's not that they didn't get enough hours. They didn't get enough hours that they desired, right? So they were only getting shift offers for Friday nights, and it happened to be with the most difficult clients. And, in their mind, it's a qualitative thing, but, they were getting enough shift offers, but none of them were appealing enough. And part of that can just be the bias from the scheduler.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jeff. Bianca, did you have anything to add about that question?
In the CareAcademy's perspective, I definitely hear, especially from new agencies that, we only have part-time employees at the moment. So it's, as best practice, we still definitely let them know that, especially if you have compliance requirements, definitely have them do the full workup, full training, initial training if needed, for example. But if they are part-time, because they may be also working with another agency, or they may have trained somewhere else, then we can make sure that any type of training that they've completed recently can be waived or credited towards whatever is assigned to their initial training. That way they wouldn't have to do the same class or topic over again, and then they could start seeing clients. So they can be satisfied because then they can get more hours because they have already completed the required number of training hours or requirements for them to start working with clients.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bianca. Those are the only questions. If there's nothing additional, then thank you all so much for participating in this webinar. Thank you to our participants for joining, and thanks for our panelists here, Bianca and Jeff, and thank you, Perry, for hosting. This was great. I will be sending out the recording to everyone who registered, so definitely look out for an email there, and we hope to be in touch with you. If you have any questions about CareAcademy or AlayaCare, please feel free to reach out. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone.
you.
Thank you. This is a lot of fun.